Hello folks, welcome to another Mulligan Science deck building video with yours truly, Lefaria. A few weeks ago there was a Magic the Gathering standard constructed Grand Prix hosted in the city of Phoenix, Arizona. This Grand Prix was won by a gentleman by the name of Robert Burney, and the deck he played was a mono-black devotion deck. Now, prior to this event, I have decided to build a mono-black devotion deck myself because I think that the mechanic is very, very interesting, and I wanted to play around with it since I've seen the first cards with the set devotion deck printed on them. If you're unfamiliar with the term devotion, I can give you a quick rundown. Devotion is a new mechanic introduced in the current Theros block. It's basically just a number, and your devotion to a certain color is calculated by the number of mana symbols of that color among permanents you control on the battlefield. So let's say for your devotion to black, if you have a Basilicus creature and a Rakdos Cackler on the battlefield, your devotion to black is 2, because there are 2 black mana symbols on the battlefield under your control. Notice that the Rakdos Cackler gives you 1 devotion to black and 1 devotion to red. That's because hybrid mana symbols count towards both devotions, to both colors. An example for a card that uses the devotion mechanic is the Mulligan Marauder from Theros. That says when Mulligan Marauder enters the battlefield, up to X target creatures each gain Intimidate and Haste until end of turn, where X is your devotion to black. So in the aforementioned example, you're having a Basilicus creature and a Rakdos Cackler out, and Mulligan Marauder enters the battlefield. Your devotion to black is now 3. That means all 3 creatures gain Intimidate and Haste until end of turn. Pretty simple. Now, as I've looked into Robert Burney's deck a bit more, I've made some changes to my deck, of course, based on some new inspiration that I got from his deck, because there are a lot of cool elements to it. But there are a few cards that I've deliberately left out for several reasons. And that's why I want to talk about cards that he included in his deck that I have decided to not include in my deck. Explain why they are generally awesome in a mono-black devotion deck, and the reasoning behind me leaving those cards out. First of all, we have Packrat. Packrat was infamous in Return to Ravnica block for being an absolute bomb in Limited. Based on what it does. It's not a very complicated card. It's a rat for 2 mana. And for 3 mana and a discard, you can put a token onto the battlefield that's a copy of Packrat. And the power of toughness is equal to the number of rats you control. So far, so good. Turn 2 Packrat was kind of an unbeatable play, was considered unbeatable in Return to Ravnica Limited, and is still an oppressively good play because you just overwhelm your opponent very, very fast with just a million rats. Now, why is this card good in Mono Black Devotion? You might ask, when I copy that creature, does it copy the mana cost? Yes, it does. That's the thing. It increases your devotion by 1 devotion to black by 1 every time you put a copy onto the battlefield with that ability. That is why you can steadily increase your devotion to black and do all sorts of nutty stuff with that, as well as getting an unbeatable army of rats. Well, why am I not playing this card, you might ask? Because it's insane. You have to play it, right? I fucking refuse. That's just the answer. You may know I'm not the guy who calls anything overpowered or imbalanced or anything. Because I always think there are methods to beat certain strategies, and especially when you're playing on a very low, on a lower level like myself, your opponent will most likely not be that good either if your matchmaking is good. And as a result of that, you can always sort of beat this kind of strategy. But nevertheless, Pack Rat is oppressively good, and it just dominates mono black devotion so much that I just wanted a little challenge to see if I could make a mono black deck that works without Pack Rat. That's why I left it out. Next up, there's Desecration Demon. Now, Desecration Demon is also a very powerful bomb in Return to Ravnica. What it does is it's a 6/6 flyer for 4 mana with double black, so it gives you 2 devotion to black, which is awesome. And moreover, it just clears the board very, very quickly, because your opponent can sacrifice a creature to sort of turn him off for combat. As you can see, you tap him and put a +1/+1 counter on it. This is also oppressively good, of course, as you might imagine. The reason I'm not playing it is I think it's kind of not very interesting, and again, I wanted to have a little challenge and build a deck without that, and because I just don't own Desecration Demons. I don't have them in my collection, and I don't feel the need to invest in that. Then Bernie's deck runs 4 copies of Mutavault, which is a land that generates colorless mana, as well as has a ability to turn on for 1 colorless mana and become a 2/2 creature with all creature types until end of turn. This card's of course very, very powerful because it synergizes with your Pack Rats. Let's say your opponent casts some mass removal like a Bile Blight or something like that. You can then turn on your Mutavault and buff up your Pack Rats so that they survive that spell. And moreover, it just makes your attacks more powerful, and it's basically a 2/2 rat that is not counterable by any form of counterspell, because it's a land and you can't counter land drops. Why am I not playing this land? First of all, I'm not playing Pack Rats, as I said, so this sort of synergy is a bit wasted in my deck. And last but not least, my deck is more of a budget deck. I have not that much money at my disposal. And Mutavaults are very, very expensive. Well, how expensive, you might ask? Like $5 per a piece? No. Mutavault is $30 a piece at the moment at MTG-O traders and stuff like that. Why is it so powerful? Because it synergizes with a fuck ton of creatures. It synergizes with fairies, with elves, with rats, with zombies, with illusions, merfolk. All that kind of decks can play it, and they normally do want that, because as I said, it's a 2/2 creature you can't counter, and you can turn that off and on and off as you please, and yeah, that means your opponent has a very, very difficult time dealing with that. So it's very, very useful in a bunch of different archetypes around several formats, legacy, modern, everything. So that explains the price tag, but that's the reason I'm not playing it, because it's fucking expensive. And then we have Thoughtseize. Thoughtseize is a very powerful disruption spell, especially in the early game. It lets you see your opponent's hand. You can play out, you can plan out your following turns in your head a bit better. You disrupt him. You can take out his most powerful spell that he has in his hand, and all of that good jazz. Why am I not playing that? Basically, I don't have any. Again, I'm not having them in my collection, and I don't see the need to invest in them quite yet, because I'm running Duress in in my deck, which is a less powerful version of Thoughtseize, but that is more than enough for me. And Thoughtseize are like $3 a piece at the moment, I think. And that's a bit too much for me. If I wanted to run 4 copies of that, that would be $12 just for a spell that I can have for free in Duress, more or less. So I decided to leave that out. That's all. So, but without further ado, let's have a look at my deck, shall we? You want to see what I built, not what Robert Burney did. Here's all the creatures in the deck that care about your devotion. First of all, the namesake Erebos, God of the Dead. The black, mono-black god in Theros. Yeah, 5/7 indestructible as long as your devotion to black is less than 5. Erebos isn't a creature, so that means you need 5 devotion to turn him on. Of course, his black mana symbol counts towards that. It prevents your opponents to gain life, and you can pay 2 mana and 2 life to draw a card. Why is this guy good? Well, it's a 5/7 for 4, and he generates a lot of card advantage. If you curve it out perfectly, you can actually turn him on turn 5 most of the time. And attack away with him, and that is a very, very powerful threat, which is why I decided to include him in my deck. And that he prevents your opponent from gaining life is of course a neat little addition to that. Then I have Grey Merchant of Asphodel, 4 copies of that in my deck. Robert Burney does that as well, so we're on par there. 5 mana creature with 2 black symbols, so he gives you 2 devotion by himself. A 2/4 creature. When Grey Merchant of Asphodel enters the battlefield, each opponent loses X life, where X is your devotion to black, and you gain life equal to the life lost this way. This creature is a powerhouse in mono-black devotion in general, because the life swings he gives you are just massive. By the time his ability resolves, your devotion on the board is normally around 5, 6, or 7, or something like that, at least. Which means he will give you a life swing of like 10, 12, 14, which is pretty substantial. And this guy has pulled me out of the dirt more than once. The other big win condition in my deck is the Abhorrent Overlord. The 6/6 flyer for 7, with 2 black mana symbols again. And when he enters the battlefield, you get a number of 1/1 black harpy creature tokens with flying, equal to your devotion to black. He has a kind of drawback because you have to sacrifice a creature at the beginning of your upkeep. But since you're getting a lot of harpy creature tokens, you normally have more than enough creatures to choose from. This guy is very powerful because, first of all, he's a 6/6 flyer, of course, which is a massive threat. And moreover, he generates these aforementioned black harpy creature tokens, which can serve as a chump blocker, which can circle around your opponent's blockers and stuff like that. So when he enters the battlefield, he puts a lot of pressure on your opponent and can normally swing games like nothing. I have had several games where I was like down to 3 or 4 life, and I've won games just based on Grey Merchants and the life swing they provide, and the defensive power from Abhorrent Overlord, as well as the extreme damage that they put out. And then I'm running 2 copies of Disciple of Phoenix. I usually use this as a mid-game disruption spell for 4 mana. When it enters the battlefield, your opponent reveals any number of cards equal to your devotion to black, and you choose one of them, and the player has to discard that card. So it's like a 4 mana duress that can target every card in your opponent's hand. For 4 mana, as I said, based on your devotion, which can be very, very powerful as hand sizes decrease. As for other creatures, I'm running 4 copies of Nightveil Spectre, which is exactly what Robert Burney does. And I got that idea from him, from looking into his deck. Before that, I didn't even consider that card. Why? Because I'm awful. That's all. Of course, this card is absolutely optimal for your deck. First of all, it's triple black, so it gives you 3 devotion on turn 3, which is awesome. Then it's a 2/3 flyer, which is great. And when it deals combat damage to your opponent, he exiles the top card of his or her library, and you can play this card. You can play cards exiled with this. As you might imagine, this guy gives you a massive amount of power and control over your opponent, just with the ability to steal your opponent's creatures and cast his spells and stuff, if you have the mana for that, of course. I believe in the finals of Grand Prix Phoenix, Robert Burney faced off against a mono-blue Devotion deck, which ran 4 copies of Nightveil Spectre himself. And he managed to steal like 3 copies of that, which is massive. Then I have 4 copies of Basilica's Creature in my deck, which Robert Burney did not do. I'm not completely sold on that guy, but I kind of like him a lot. I like him in general. It is like a 1/2 flyer. It's always good for 2 mana. Gives you 1 devotion on turn 2, and the fact that he has Extort really adds to this life drain effect of my deck, which is more what I wanted to focus on. I wanted to have as much life drain in here as possible. 2 copies of Baleful Eidolon can be important when you need any form of Death Touch. Of course, they trade with everything on the ground, which is good for blocking on the defense. And the fact that you can bestow them onto your Basilica's creatures or your Nightveil Spectres and give them Death Touch, as well as +1/+1, makes for some interesting decisions on the defensive part of the deck. And your deck is rather defensive. It is more of a control deck. And then I have 2 copies of Servant of Timurid, which has the new Born of the Gods mechanic inspired. When he becomes untapped, your opponent is drained for 1 life, and you gain that life as well, and he has Regenerate. This again synergizes with the life drain aspect of the deck, which I wanted to lay a focus on. Of course, in a mono black deck, I'm running lots of removal. First of all, 2 copies of Doomblade, one of the best removal spells in black removal spells in the format. Destroys everything except black creatures, and you can easily board that out against black. Then I have a copy of Ultimate Price, same thing as Doomblade, only can not destroy multicolored creatures. Gives you a bit of flexible options should you face mono black in your first game. After that you can board out the Doomblades and get some more Ultimate Price or other removal in. And 4 copies of Bile Blight. Target creature and all other creatures with the same name as that creature get -3/-3 until end of turn. This is sort of your mass removal spell in this deck, which is the best mono black option in the current standard format. Why am I running 4 copies of that? 2 words, of course, Pack Rat. You just need a way to deal with Pack Rats early, and that gets rid of all the copies that that don't exceed this kind of toughness. In the current standard metagame, you're more or less required to have an answer against Pack Rat in your deck, or you will get screwed more often than not. And lastly, 2 copies of Stab Wound, which is a kind of removal / crippling spell that I very much like. The enchanted creature gets -2/-2, and at the beginning of that creature's controller's upkeep, he loses 2 life. Again, this spell runs a lot in the vein of draining my opponent out, and I have had games where I had a Stab Wound cast on one of his creatures and he just bled to death on that Stab Wound. So yeah, Stab Wound, pretty good card, and the fact that it cripples the enchanted creature and makes it less powerful is also a nice effect. As for a mana base, I'm running 2 Temple of Silence, which enter the battlefield tapped, and I can scry 1 when they enter, and I get a black mana for that. I could also get a white mana, but I don't care about that because I don't have any white spells. Why am I running 2 and not 4? Well, I just have 2, period. Then 23 Swamps, nothing spectacular there. And 4 copies of Duress, as I mentioned before. Kind of a poor man's Thoughtseize. Target opponent reveals his hand, you choose a non-creature, non-land card, and he discards that card. Pretty good if you just want to see, if you play that on turn 1 and you see your opponent's hand, even if you can't make him discard 1 card because he only has creatures or lands in hand, just to plan out your game a bit more. And then I have one copy of Claim of Erebos, which is kind of a bullshit card in this deck. I just want to have the combo of Claim of Erebos with Servant of Timurid on it, which I can tap at the end of my opponent's turn to drain him for 2 life. And then Servant of Timurid becomes untapped and the inspired ability triggers. That's why I have that in there, but I often board that out. As for sideboarding, I have to admit I'm not that good with constructing and or playing with sideboards just yet. So this sideboard is nowhere near perfect. But I will work on that in the future, and I'm kind of satisfied as it is right now. But there are some changes I would like to make, and I will mention that in a minute. But first of all, I have a copy of Pithing Needle in here, which is basically a 1-mana spell that lets you turn off any kind of activated ability of your opponent's creatures or lands or planeswalkers. Of course, 1 mana to turn off an Elspeth or a Pack Rat or a Mutavault is, as you might imagine, very, very powerful. Then 2 more copies of Doomblade, 2 more copies of Ultima Price, just to make you, just to give you the option of adjusting your removal based on the kind of creatures that you're facing. 1 more copy of Stab Wound, because why not? 2 copies of Hero's Downfall, which is a very powerful unconditional removal spell, which can also target planeswalkers. Then 2 copies of Midnight Recovery. I'm not that sold on that that spell yet, but I thought if I'm running into decks that have a fair amount of removal themselves, I can use this spell to get my creatures out of the graveyard again, which might come in handy. But I might board this out later, as well as the Grisly Spectacle, another unconditional removal that also mills your opponent, but the milling part, of course, is not that important in this deck. Then I have a Keepsake Gorgon, a 2/5 Death Touch creature that you can activate a monstrosity ability, and when it dies, you can destroy a creature. But yeah, I kind of like Keepsake Gorgon as a creature itself. Might not be the most useful creature in here, but against some decks it may come in handy. The fact that it has 5 toughness adds to its defensive power, of course. Then there's a copy of Corrupt. I thought that might add to the life drain mechanic in this deck. Because you basically have devoted a lot of your deck to swamps, and the fact that it drains your opponent equal to the number of swamps you control is might be what I want against certain opponents. If I need some more reach or anything to get some more damage through, that might be the option for me. And finally, an Archetype of Finality, which gives all my creatures Death Touch, which is neat, of course. And my opponent's creatures lose Death Touch and can't have or gain Death Touch. Again, this might come in handy if I need to be strong in the defensive and need my creatures to be able to trade with everything my opponent has. So let's see the deck in action, shall we? This is the match browser of Magic Online, the current beta client. And I'm just going to open up a game lobby and see what comes out, and see if I can get any good games in. I'm going to use the Just for Fun room again. It's always funny seeing comments like this in game lobby. There's no Titans, Locust, Coffers, Annihilator greater than 2. I have seen lobbies with comments like no Planeswalkers or no milling bullshit or something like that, which is kind of amusing. If you don't want to see strategies like that, you're maybe playing the wrong game, I think. But that's up to every player. I'm now trying to open up the game. I'm using this deck, of course. As you can see, there's a bunch of decks that I'm working on that you can expect videos of in the future. Format standard constructed is okay. Buddies and watchers, I don't care. and wins per match. I'll go with 1 win. As I said, the sideboard is not that streamlined at the moment. So I will just go for a single match. Comments, I will sort of parody that, and I will write all bullshit with triple L, bullshit allowed, smiley face. And then let's open up the lobby and see what comes out. And we're up against a player called Texas MMC. Let's see what he's up to. I won the die roll. Yes, I would like to play first. Thank you. This hand's a bit risky. I'm gonna ship that. This one looks a bit better. Not great, but hey, keep this. Okay, we have probably a turn 3 Night Veil Spectre, which is great. Turn 2 Doomblade up. Yeah, not too shabby. Duress, he's going to get rid of the Doomblade, which doesn't do me any good anyway, because he's playing mono black, looks like. Or at least he's playing black. So we're having a black mirror here. Which means the Night Veil Spectre will come in handy. And there's the pack rat. Nice. So we're having a black devotion mirror here. That's kind of interesting. He's playing Bio Blight on my Night Veil Spectre. Sure, he's going in for 1. That's fine. Do I want to do that? No, I want the blocker. He'll probably copy now, I guess. Nope. Okay. Can't make me discard anything. Not attacking, of course. Okay. Let's get the next of these in. Not drawing well, but hey. I could go in with this. Yeah, I do have a blocker, and I'll get the untap trigger. So, yeah, that's cool. Next turn I can play a Disciple of Phoenix for 4 devotion if he doesn't do anything here. He plays Underworld Connections, okay. That's fine. He can pay 1 life to draw a card. That's pretty much the deck that that Robert, what's his name, Robert Burney played, I think. He played a lot of Underworld Connections, which give you big card advantage with enchanted lands and stuff. I'm gonna stab wound the pack rat. I don't want that to be an issue anymore. Boom. Now go in for 2 plus 2 draining on my upkeep. Game's not looking too shabby. What's he doing? A Desecration Demon. Sure. That really seems to be Robert Burney's deck. That's fine. let's look at his hand and make him discard one card. Whip of Erebos, Liliana of the Dark Realms, Grey Merchant of Asphodel. I will take the Merchant, I guess. Yeah, Liliana of the Dark Realms is pretty trashy. Whip of Erebos, I don't care about lifelink really that much. Yeah, let's get rid of the Merchant. Do I want to sack a creature just now? No, I don't. Another fucking Desecration Demon. Okay. Now, which is that? That's this. I do not want to sacrifice a creature. And I do wish to sacrifice a creature, which is this here. So let's get the Nightveil Spectre in. Nope. Nope. Next turn I will play Grey Merchant, drain him for 5. What's he doing? Whip of Erebos, another fucking Desecration Demon. Wow. Nope. Yes, I wish to. Boom. And yes, boom. I cannot duress and merchant, so I'm just gonna merchant. Oops. I could sack that guy and go in for 2. No. No, I shouldn't do that. I'm at 27. Next turn, if I go in for 2 now and maybe get one of his creatures. No. No, I need the blocker. Yes, I want to. I want to sack this. Oh, shit. That was a misclick. Okay, I've just lost. That's okay. 3 Desecration Demons is kind of oppressive. But yeah, there you have it. Nice deck so far. His deck was just better. He was playing a pretty similar version of Robert Burney's deck, and that deck is clearly better, I have to say that. But my deck is a lot of fun when you get it to work, and it's a lot cheaper, of course, because I'm on a budget. If you want to catch me playing standard constructed matches with this deck, you might want to check out my Twitch TV stream. A link is in the description below. I normally stream standard constructed matches there, and in the near future I will try and get into more best of 3s to learn how to sideboard and stuff like that. Yeah, so far, thanks for watching. See you next time. Goodbye.